Now, Ipeleng Khunou, Nedbank running club athlete living with a disability, joins us now for a conversation. A very good evening to you, Ipeleng. Thank you so much for your time. This is a summit that's been said will look at universal accessibility to the different modes of public transport. Some people living with disabilities have said that they're hoping that this summit, for one, will not be just a talk shop, that something will come of it. What would you expect to come out of such a summit?
Good evening to you and your viewers. Obviously, we're hoping that this is not another type of electioneering where people living with disabilities are being given high hopes and nothing happens. So that's really what I'm hoping, and I'm hoping that some of the matters that we spoke about will really be taken seriously going forward.
I know that the transport matter is one very close to your heart, given what happened to you in November of 2020 when you were inside a TBS bus and fell because the driver departed before you could take your seat. Talk us through that experience and the course of action that followed.
Yes. So obviously I'm a resident of Tshwane, and it's a sad one considering that Pretoria's got the most schools for children with disabilities. And for me to fall as a result of a bus driver driving off was just something that is just very sad, and it just shows the lack of training that happens, around our metros and so on.
So when it comes to the course of action that you took since falling, what have you encountered?
I've taken the matter to the Human Rights Commission. Sadly, they didn't do much about it, and hence I decided, to proceed with litigation at the Equality Court.
And talk us through some of the basis, the legal arguments that you're putting forward insofar as this matter is concerned, and how you are essentially hoping for justice to be served.
Well, we are obviously going to argue that, my human rights and my dignity has been, compromised, and the city has been given an advantage to take their drivers for training, yet they've never done that. So for us, what we would really like the outcome to be is a public transport system that works for everyone else.
And what would you say your experience proves, or perhaps goes to show, about government's attitude or conduct around people living with disabilities?
We believe we are not taken seriously.
Yeah.
And even though we've got great legislation that protects, the rights of everyone in South Africa, but these laws are not followed properly, and for the mere fact that there is still white paper being discussed, as in terms of disability rights and so on, it just shows that there's little movement that's been made in the disability sector, to improve the lives of people living with disability.
What sort of mechanisms or perhaps tools do you think are needed to ensure that whatever's written on paper insofar as legislation and policy is concerned is actually put into effect and implemented? What will it take? I mean, I don't know if you heard, as one of my colleagues here at SABC News was interviewing some people living with disabilities who had attended the summit. They were talking about how when one considers the public transport system, like the minibus taxis, the drivers are not compassionate enough or seem to not be in touch with the challenges that people living with disabilities may face.
To a certain extent, I would say I can sympathize with the taxi drivers, considering that they've never really had training and so on. But I think from the government point of view, it's really disappointing, considering that they've got all the resources to train their drivers and all that, but no one is really following through. So I think going forward, we would like to see, serious repercussions being made towards people living with disabilities' rights, not being followed up, and make sure that equal living spaces, equal rights are observed. Yeah.
What do you think the community can do to assist and help normalize the access to transport, to the different modes of transport for people living with disabilities?
I think if public transport is accessible for everyone else, everyone benefits. So I think we need to resell this model of accessibility and let everyone understand that if transport is accessible and is universal for everyone, it's not just a disability thing, but it's also for our grannies and pregnant women and so on. So I think there really needs to be awareness on that, and that it's not just a disability thing.
Very well. Thank you so much, Ipeleng, for talking to us there. Ipeleng Khunou, who's part of the Nedbank running club athlete, pardon me, living with a disability, and just talking about his experience as these conversations are underway around improving the access of transport to people living with disabilities. He's saying that he's hoping that it's not just an electioneering tool, given the tone and the atmosphere of elections being around the corner, that of course that something tangible comes out of it insofar as the implementation of what's written on paper, the legislation and the policies.